part of my coming of age was listening to my sister's 33 and a third vinyl long playing records. I'm in the middle of 7 children, and I grew up in the East Flatbush section of Brooklyn. And the eldest was my sister Antoinette, and everybody called it Tony. And she was the adventurous one. She ended up being the first one to have a car. It was a used Barracuda, and she knew how to fix it to keep it running smoothly. Well, she had a collection of records, varied. And I was about 11 years old when I started listening to them in the 6th grade. And I'd get up, every so often in the middle of the night, and I had my favorites. These are the ones that I recall. There was Joan Baez, very famous folk singer. And on this one album, one piece was called Copper Kettle. And the verse was, get you a copper kettle, get you a copper coil, and it was about making moonshine. And the only thing I knew about moonshine was that it was an illegal whiskey, alcohol beverage. But she made it sound like it was so much a part of life. The other record I recall was The Ninth Prisoner, and it was in Spanish. And she sung it with such passion. And there was a translation, and the thing that always stuck in my mind was, the ninth prisoner, I do not repent. So he accepted the consequences or whatever his fate was. Another album was Frank Sinatra's Only Lonely. And on the cover, it had sort of a portrait of him, and it looked like he was behind the window, and it was almost like tears were streaming down his eyes. And one song he sort of sang, and it was, it's 2:45, and there's no one in the place but you and me. So set 'em up, Joe. I got a little story I want you to know. And to me, Frank Sinatra's signature was smoking cigarettes, drinking in bars, and feeling sorry for himself. And I tried that when I was in my 20s, thinking that would attract women. Well, it never worked for me. So I sort of went through that phase. Oh, the next album I recall was Moodsville. And it was a jazz album. And it had a very captivating modern art front cover. And I learned that you don't need words to tell a story with music. John Coltrane on sax, playing I See Your Face Before Me. I could mouth imaginary words to that piece. And then there was Miles Davis on trumpet. That had me flying. And then there were records that were, albums that were part of my culture, my background as a Greek American. It was Port Said. And that had a belly dance on the cover. And reading it, 8th Avenue along 42nd Street, at one time after World War II and I guess up to the 60s, was known as Greek Town. It had restaurants, Malfetis, the Acropolis, the Pantheon, the International, which was a import store where you could get cheeses and olives, olive oil and herbs and other items religious from Greece. And a little further west on 9th Avenue was the Poseidon Bakery, where you would get the Easter bread, baked with the egg, hard-boiled egg inside. And they were actually the first, they inaugurated the 9th Avenue Food Festival, which is probably the forerunner of all the street fairs when they were novelties. And then I'd invariably play Nikos Wuneris, and he played the mandolin, and I believe the bouzouki, and he was a troubadour. He was known as the troubadour. And one piece he sang was Ena Ravri Buvrake, which means one rainy night. And it was the words were, "One rainy night you left me." His songs always had very simple lyrics, like the bread is on the table. And at this concert he gave, it was at the Acropolis. And the crowd ended up singing the chorus with him. Well, the hi-fi was in the living room corner, right by the window that overlooked Nostrand Avenue, which was the main thoroughfare, and Midwood Street, which was our side street. And every time I would change a record, I would look out, and every once in a while there'd be, in the middle of the night, a lone car. And I found it fascinating, I don't know why, that it would dutifully stop at a red light, no other traffic, either direction, and as soon as it turned green, it would slowly go on its way. Well, that hi-fi had a crystal in the middle, and every time I played a record, it would be a ruby red. And I would huddle on the linoleum floor listening to it, and that crystal was like a beacon. And these albums are, a part of my coming of age and being aware of there's a whole world out there. Thank you for listening.